1:00 a.m., September 23, 2025. A 38-car Russian military train stood in silence. On board, 400 tons of shells, 180,000 liters of diesel, and crates of rockets, enough to erase a brigade. Protected by a Pantsir S-1 unit, it was thought untouchable. Yet 3 Ukrainian UJ26 Beavers raced in at 180 kilometer range, slipping under radar beams despite Russia's billions in jammers and interceptors. In seconds, those defenses cracked. Reuters and BBC noted Ukraine's drone industry had grown 600% in 2 years. Russia now fired missiles worth $2 to $3 million each at drones costing under $20,000. Cheap machines were dismantling costly doctrine. David versus Goliath, again. And this strike would soon rank among the worst on Russian soil since the war began. The true disaster was not just drones hitting steel, but the collapse that followed. Blind radars, burning trains, and a nightmare question for Moscow. If 3 drones can do this, what about 300? Russia fields 1,700 aircraft, 3,000 tanks, and Cold War stockpiles. Ukraine countered with improvisation, civilian tech, Western intel, and ingenuity. That made drones the great equalizer. Reports from NYT and Defense News show Kiev turned commercial UAVs into strike platforms able to bypass billion-dollar defenses. History rhymes, kites vexed Napoleon, mines stalled Tuan armies. In 2025, 20K drones humiliate S-300s, Tor M2s, and Pantsires worth millions. NATO is rethinking doctrine. While the West poured billions into 80 Mavericks F-35 jets, Ukraine proved swarms of cheap drones at treetop level could pierce defenses and cripple logistics. Russia's railways, its lifeline since the 19th century, became the target. Stalin once moved divisions by rail. Today, the same system moves fuel, shells, and troops. Ukraine chose the Salsk junction, linking Rostov-on-Don to occupied Donbass. Striking here slowed offensives, delayed shells, and stretched convoys thin. This was more than tactical. It was symbolic. Proof that Soviet steel doctrine was powerless against 21st century ingenuity. But risk was immense. Russian EW had blinded drones before. Yet Kiev gambled on one principle: brains over brawn. At 2:12 a.m., 3 UJ26 Beavers slipped across Russia's border. Minutes later, 3 more followed, dividing north and south. GPS was useless. Russian jammers had long erased that option. So the drones flew by pre-programmed waypoints and terrain mapping. Every meter counted. Russian radars flickered with faint contacts. The northern group showed near the M4 highway, prompting a Tor M2 battery to scan at 25 rotations per minute. On paper, its kill rate was 92% against low-flying drones. In practice, it was overwhelmed by decoys, noise bursts, and reflective balloons. Meanwhile, the southern group hugged the Severky Donetsk Valley. At just 25 meters altitude, terrain itself masked them from radar beyond 20 kilometers. Analysts later confirmed Ukraine had mapped hundreds of these radar shadows, threading drones through like needles at 180 kilometers of age. By 2:20 a.m., the northern drones faced the Arlovsky power station, guarded by Cold War-era Zu-23 guns spitting 2,000 rounds per minute. But destroying the 330 kV transformer there would blind 6 Russian air defense sites, including the Pantsir battery at Salsk, for 20 minutes. That window was all Ukraine needed. One drone climbed to draw fire. Tracers streaked the sky. 2 others skimmed fences and sheds. The lead executed a barrel roll, dodging fire by inches. Seconds later, it slammed into the transformer with a 20 kilotons KZ-6-shaped charge. Fire erupted 60 meters high. The other 2 struck the control cabinet and top bushing, cascading the grid into darkness. Screens went black, generators sputtered, and radars shut down. At 2:26 a.m., The southern drones were already 40 kilometers closer, following railway lines camouflaged by steel and power cables. Russian doctrine mistook them for maintenance vehicles, a fatal assumption. At Salsk, a Pantsir crew, caught mid-shift change, fired a 15 million 57E6 missile manually. But without radar guidance, it veered off and exploded uselessly overhead. The drones scattered, regrouped, and pressed forward. Now, with radars blind, operators in chaos, and power grids crippled, nothing stood between the UAVs and their prize. A 38-car train stacked with destruction. 2:41 a.m. Salsk Railway Junction. Floodlights glared, but inside the Pantsir command vehicle, chaos ruled. Power grids down, radars blind, operators tracking by eye. 3 UJ26 Beavers lined up for their final run. Each approached from a different direction, flying 180 km/h at staggered altitudes of 50, 100, and 150 meters. Infrared feeds painted a glowing train, a locomotive burning hot, diesel cars radiating, ammunition cars cold but lethal. The engineer tried to move the 38 cars, but locomotives need minutes to build speed. The drones were seconds away. At 2:42, the first slammed into the engine compartment. A backpack-sized charge tore through steel, igniting fuel vapors. The locomotive died instantly. The second drone hit fuel car number 3, chosen for its upwind position. 60,000 liters of diesel spilled and caught fire, creating a river of flames down the tracks and into the yard. The third drone targeted an ammunition car carrying 152 mm shells. Its detonation at 2:43 seemed small, until the fire inside triggered a chain of explosions. Shells cooked off one by one, then dozens. Shockwaves ripped windows a kilometer away. Flames spread along the diesel river, reaching more ammo cars. At 2:45, sympathetic detonations cascaded. The 38-car train became a rolling chain of fireballs. Civilians filmed the plume, verified later by BBC and Reuters, rising nearly a kilometer high. The Pantsir crew tried to fire again, but voltage was too low, optics blinded by smoke. 15 mm of air defense sat useless, watching 3 20K drones devastate hundreds of millions in equipment. It wasn't just destruction, it was revelation. An empire of steel humbled by machines smaller than a man. As flames consumed Salsk, one chilling thought spread. If 3 drones could level a junction, what could 300 do to a city? Satellite images showed a black scar stretching a kilometer across the landscape. NASA detected the smoke plume from orbit. Russian media could not hide the loss. 38 cars gone. At least 12 fuel cars, 720,000 liters of diesel, obliterated. 200 tons of shells detonated, equal to 2 weeks of supply for an artillery division. BBC estimated the total damage at $150 million. The drones? All 3 together cost under $60,000. The asymmetry was brutal. Russia had spent decades and billions building its shield, only to be pierced by drones cheaper than a car. Rail traffic through Salsk halted for days. Ammunition bound for Donbass was delayed. Fuel shortages spread across Rostov Oblast, and convoys already strained ground to a halt. Strategically, the strike shattered illusions. Russia's layered defenses, radars, jammers, SAMs, all relied on stable power and coordination. By hitting the transformer first, Ukraine exposed the system's hidden fragility. Internationally, the blow echoed. NATO officials told Defense News this was more than a drone attack. It was an information strike. Proof that swarms of low-cost UAVs could overwhelm billion-dollar defenses. In Washington, reports emerged that President Donald Trump's administration was reviewing joint U.S.-Ukraine drone programs to deliver thousands of UAVs within months. Moscow downplayed the loss, claiming only 2 fuel cars were hit and 22 drones shot down. but geolocated civilian footage showed massive fireballs consuming rail cars, contradicting every denial. For Ukraine, the victory was more than material. It proved Russian logistics were breakable, warned Moscow's allies in Beijing and Tehran that the rear was vulnerable, and reminded Russians at home that the war could reach deep inside their own territory. By midday, Salsk was unrecognizable. Charred steel twisted across a blackened kilometer scar. The lesson was clear. In modern war, victory belongs not to the biggest gun, but to the side that adapts faster, thinks smarter, and strikes cheaper. For Russia, it was the collapse of a doctrine built on massive stockpiles and layered defenses. For Ukraine, it was proof that ingenuity and timing could cripple a force 10 times larger. But the question grew darker. If 3 drones destroyed one train, could 30 black out a power grid? Could 300 overwhelm a city like Belgorod, or even Moscow? NATO analysts warned the world may be entering a drone century, where swarms of $20,000 UAVs dominate skies once ruled by billion-dollar weapons. President Trump pushed allies to fast-track drone swarm projects. China poured billions into AI-guided UAVs. Israel tested laser countermeasures. Every major power now understood. If Ukraine could do this, so could others. And for ordinary people, the fear lingered. If railways, depots, and power stations can't be defended, what of cities and economies? Will the wars of the future be decided not by armies of men, but by clouds of machines? Viewers, the battlefield is transforming before our eyes. Are drones the end of traditional warfare, or the beginning of something far more dangerous?